Last time on the Comic Book Vault, these are awesome. Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to the vast and ominous Comic Book Vault. It's time for new acquisitions. This week I have tons of new books for you, lots of DC, a little bit of Marvel, once again another big IDW week, and a couple of independent books from other companies right at the end. I want to say thanks as always to Elite Comics at Overland Park for helping me out with the show, and if you're ever in the Kansas City area, do yourself a favor, go to Elite Comics. It's an absolutely fantastic store. And before we jump into the show today, I'd like to ask everybody a question. I am thinking very seriously about changing how I do new comic reviews. I know I tend to switch up things with the format of the show quite a bit, and I have an idea, and I'd like to know what people think of it because it would be a huge, drastic change. I am reviewing so many books now. I used to do more like half a dozen. Now I'm doing at least 12 to 14 books a week, and the show is getting very long. It's getting to where it's at least an hour long, which was okay when it was a live show because a lot of people were watching live, and of course, if they take the time to sit down and watch us live, it's better if it's not 20 minutes. But and then of course now we've also brought back books Captain Logan doesn't read with Superhero Enthusiast, and so the show's clocking in about an hour 10, hour 20 a lot of weeks now, and I'd like to know if people would prefer if we were to post each of the comic reviews as separate videos. Now I know it would be a huge amount of videos every week then, that I don't know if that would be irritating for people or not to have their inboxes clogged up with all these new comic review videos. That's kind of the thing that's making me resist the notion a little bit. But the reason I'm considering this is, I'm doing so many of these books that it's very difficult to read them all and then, without another person to bounce off of, sit here and review each of them all in one sitting, remembering everything I want to say, everything that happened in them, that kind of thing. So I am starting to review these after I read them. So I'll read one and then I'll record a review, and I'm just going to be stringing those together now for this video. You'll see that format tonight. But I'm thinking, since I'm doing it that way now, it might not be a terrible idea if I were to review a book and then get it edited and then just get it posted for you as soon as I've done one, and then just put them out over a couple, 3 days as I'm getting them done. And there are a lot of channels that do it that way, but we don't just review new comics. We have so many other things too that I don't know if that would be too much of an oversaturation for people. So anyway, I wanted to run it by the viewers first, and I'd like to take a vote on this. If people would prefer these as individual videos, please in the comments let me know if you like that idea. And if you would prefer the show to just be all in one video so you don't have to click different videos, please vote no. And because I do the timestamps, but I know there are some folks that will click for just one or two reviews. They don't want to look at everything, and it might be easier for those folks if they were separate videos. So I'm seeing the pros of it, I'm seeing the cons of it. I'd like to let you folks help me make up my mind on it. In the meantime, we're going to keep doing it this way, and let me also mention that if we were to start posting them that way, I would post books Captain Logan doesn't read as a separate video. So that show would still exist and would kind of be its own thing. It would still be a segment of the Comic Vault, but it would be its own video then, and so it'd be 15-20 minutes of reviews from somebody else. Right now, Superhero Enthusiast, about books that I didn't happen to read that week. So anyway, let me know. I'd really like to know what people think about that. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and get started right away with some DC stuff. The first thing on the docket today is Batman number 29, as always by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo. This is a $5 issue. It's oversized, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. This is got to be my favorite, or at least one of my favorite issues of Zero Year thus far. I am so impressed with Snyder's plotting in this, with the way that he's interweaving the big idea through all of this, and then all of the nuanced stuff inside of it. This is really dense. This is just packed packed with material, and not just thematic stuff, not just character stuff, but also it's a really exciting issue. This is incredibly gripping stuff. We get to, and there's a ton of atmosphere in this issue. We get to see Batman trying to stop the Riddler from destroying Gotham by way of flood, and it turns out that's been his big end game. There's this big storm coming, and Riddler has figured out a way to make that storm flood all of Gotham by, in the background, manipulating the dams and the city's power and all that stuff, and it turns out that's what the blackout was about. And boy, I thought that the whole big end game was about the blackout. It turned out that it was about a lot more than that. It's so unusual to see Riddler acting on this kind of a scale. This has got to be the most menacing I've ever seen the Riddler, but I really love that Snyder doesn't have him resorting to just like brute physical violence or that sort of thing. He's still the Riddler. He's just a way more effective version than I think we've ever seen before. Maybe I've said this before, but he reminds me a lot of the Arkham City version. It's really neat though to get to see him working something on this scale. I do question it to a degree. Question, get it? Just because it's such a big plan, it's such an impressive plan, and he's coming so close to actually fulfilling it that I have a hard time buying that he'll ever have anything more impressive than this later. I don't know where the Riddler goes after this, and this is the first time he and Batman have ever dealt with each other, and the Riddler ends up being kind of the first major villain, with the exception of Red Hood, I guess, that Batman in this particular version, in the Snyder update, that Batman faces. And I mean, this is a city-wide kind of problem. There are millions of lives at stake, and so I'm enjoying that kind of scale. I think that the story is earning that scale, and I think this is probably going to go down as one of the better Riddler stories. But I do kind of moving past this, remembering that this is a prequel, and that there's a lot of history in between this and the present day. It's just really hard to imagine more Riddler stuff any better than this. The big idea with this issue, and I imagine that Snyder will continue this moving forward, is uncertainty, and the notion of, as we deal with Batman a lot, but Snyder's got a great spin on it, of, is Batman causing more harm than good by trying to help people? Is he just getting in the way? Is he just overcomplicating things? Is it inevitable that bad things are going to happen and there's nothing Batman can do to stop it? And if he tries, he's only going to exacerbate it. What I love is that notion is built in now in this kind of new updated version of Batman's origin from the very beginning, before his parents get killed. Snyder has updated that a little bit. So you have Batman's you have Bruce Wayne going to the movies with his parents, and it's still the same movie. I like, by the way, that in this updated version, there's a really good explanation for why it's the same movie, even though it's an old movie. It's still Zorro. That's not name dropped though. They make it's made very clear that that's what it is, but it's not name dropped, and I kind of thought that was neat. But anyway, So Bruce has a very good reason in this to feel somewhat at fault for his parents' death, and the fact that they go to the movie in the first place is his fault. And it's not just in this version because he really wanted to go. There's and I won't give away exactly what it is, but it in a very interesting way brings he and his father closer together, and I really love their relationship in this. I think it's very real, and like I actually found the death more impactful after seeing them interact together, kind of like I did in Batman Begins, and I really appreciated that here. Fast forward to the Batman stuff in this, and you've got Batman tackling Dr. Death, who has this whole philosophy of people are always alone. They have to go it alone. They have to build up immunities and build up scars, and that's what his whole research is about. He lets people die in order to figure out how to save people, and his whole thing is you can't rely on other people to save you, and if you try to just go in and save other people, and by the way, his whole thing is about like trying to make himself better in order to help other people. So he's not helping anybody else directly. In fact, he's hurting them, and he thinks that's the only way to do it. And so you mix that in with this whole notion of Batman might be making things worse, and I really enjoy how that idea is being explored in all of these different ways. And then Batman makes this terrible mistake in this that brings him all the way back to where he was before. And I also think this is a pretty good. This is an okay place to read, even if you've not been reading Zero Year. I think it catches you up okay. So if you've not been reading this, and you just don't know about the whole going back to the past Zero Year thing, you're still not sold on it, this might be the issue for you to jump on and try it. Boy, I liked this a lot. Next up, more Bat fun with Batgirl number 29. This is by Gail Simone with art by Fernando Pesserin. This is the second part of a story that I started to review last time this book came out about a supervillain named Silver, who thinks that the entire Bat family is made up of vampires, and he blames Batman, we find out here, and his whole band of evil vampires that rule Gotham in this huge conspiracy for the death of his mother, who died in a bathtub, and he believes that when he was a kid, and he believes that Batman and his vampire posse are responsible. There's a lot of interesting perspective stuff here, where we see Silver looking at members of the Bat family, specifically Batgirl, and right now her ally Strix, who was raised by the Court of the Owls. There's this moment where he looks at them, and he not only sees them as vampires, and it's kind of fun to see how he looks at them and what they look like as vampires, but also doesn't even hear what they're really saying. He's so far gone. He's really delusional, and he's a really interesting villain. He's really unusual. He is fantastic at fighting. So there's a lot of really thrilling scenes with him in very old school kind of gothic, like, horror sequences, looking stuff, fighting Batgirl and Strix. And I really like Gail Simone's word choice and stuff in this. There's this really amusing moment where a police officer, after going up against Silver and the police just completely getting their butts handed to them, says, my friend or uncle or someone moved from Gotham to Detroit in order to get away from the noise because of the quiet. And I just thought that was a really funny line. Gail Simone has a lot of those great moments of levity in this, and this is both a dark book or issue and a quirky issue all at the same time. There's a lot of really great dramatic beats, but then it never takes itself too terribly seriously. Usually in a Gail Simone Batgirl book, I find myself doing three things. I laugh, I get really entertained, and I'm kind of thrilled. And then thirdly, I recoil in abject terror. And there is definitely all three of those things happening here. It's really great, and especially with the big twist at the end. Not a twist in a bad way. It definitely makes sense, but it's not what I thought was going to happen. When you find out a part of this that's really going on, it's really creepy and messed up. And that's the best way to describe a lot of this series, is that, Batgirl is the level-headed one in the middle of a whole bunch of twisted and messed up. Anyway, this one is really fun. I highly recommend it. My last book from DC this week is Superman Wonder Woman number 6 by Charles Soule with art by Tony Daniel. Amazing, fantabulous art by Tony Daniel. This was another really fun issue of this book. One of the things that I am really enjoying about this is the mixture and balance of the Superman mythology with the Wonder Woman mythology. We've got Zod and Faora now on one end. We had Doomsday at the beginning of this. And by the way, there's a great explanation finally for how all that stuff goes together. And then on the other end, we've got Apollo, who wants revenge on Superman for dating Wonder Woman. And I really like how this is a really big, epic, action-packed kind of book, but it's also a romance. It's also a love story. It's also a soap opera in the best possible use of that word. Here we've got Zod and Faora finally revealing their master plan. One of the things that's kind of silly about this issue is the way that Zod does kind of the classic stupid supervillain thing of telling Superman exactly what he's going to do before he's done it. But anyway, his big plan is to bring the rest of the bad guys in the Phantom Zone out of the Phantom Zone, which is not at all surprising, but fun to see him working toward that, especially when we see who else exactly is in the Phantom Zone, and I won't give that away. But Zod and Faora are fighting Superman and Wonder Woman at the beginning of this and trying to use their relationship against them. This issue explores the possible strengths and weaknesses that Superman and Wonder Woman have together as a duo because of the fact that they're in a romance. So the big question is, are they stronger together or are they more compromised because they're lovers? And Superman is asking Wonder Woman that question at the beginning of this. He's worried that he's compromising them as a team whenever they're in a fight together because he's more worried about her safety than he is about beating the bad guys. And then when they go up against Zod, Zod actually tries to use that to his advantage to try to corner Wonder Woman in such a way where Superman will not be able to win the fight because he's too worried about Wonder Woman. So they play with that, but then later on, there's a couple of things that Superman and Wonder Woman are able to do together that they couldn't do if they were apart. So I'm really enjoying the way that that's being explored, and I really like the way that the action is serving the story in this book. The way that we are, again, exploring a relationship through battle sequences. I haven't seen a lot of that, and I think it's working really well in this. I also just really like Superman and Wonder Woman's chemistry. This is not a couple that I was real sure about when we first found out that this was going on, and this book is really selling me on them. So anyway, I'm definitely recommending this, and this continues to be really fun, riveting stuff. The last issue that I thought was kind of silly about Superman not being able to keep Zod in a cage because he didn't think to change the Kryptonian passcode is addressed in this, and Wonder Woman kind of makes fun of Superman for doing that. And so I like that this book doesn't take itself too seriously, and that it's able to kind of poke fun at itself a little bit and that kind of thing. Really smart stuff by Soul, and I'm really impressed with this. And the cliffhanger is really kind of shocking, and loved this one. Dear DC Comics, could you please consider not calling your current line the New 52 anymore? I mean, it's no longer new, and I'm not sure that you always have exactly 52 regular running books in circulation, and it's getting a little ridiculous. At least if you're going to insist on continuing this arbitrary 52 thing, maybe consider changing the entire name of your company from DC Comics to 52 Comics. All right, jumping over to Marvel, we've got all new X-Men number 24, part 5 of the Trial of Jean Grey. We are just one issue away from the end of this crossover event between all new X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy. It's funny because whenever I'm reading these, I find myself in the middle forgetting if I'm reading an X-Men issue or a Guardians issue, because each of them seem to be sharing equal amounts of panel time. The Guardians get quite a bit to do in this issue, so just before I started talking about this one, I was like, wait, is this X-Men or is this Guardians? So this is by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Stuart Immonen, and boy, this is really finally picking up. I have been a little bit down on Trial of Jean Grey, just because I felt like early on it could have been told in fewer issues and that it was a little bit too talky. Didn't have that problem here. I thought this issue was really quite dense. I was surprised when I got to the final page that it was finally over. There were a couple of places as I was reading where I found myself going, wow, have I not read a full 22 pages yet? And I love that feeling after I thought that the first few of these were a little bit sluggish. So here, finally some courtroom drama, which I was really wanting to see in this, of course, being a trial book, but not the way you might expect. So Jason shows up, the father of Star-Lord, and starts in the middle of the courtroom berating the Gladiator for what he's doing to Jean Grey, and reminds us of a number of things about the Shi'ar and their history with the Phoenix, which I found enlightening and kind of nice to be reminded of and refreshed of, because some of it I knew, some of it I didn't, and I thought that a lot of people who are not familiar with all of the Claremont stuff might not know some of those things, and I thought that they came up in such a way where it explains it to new readers and reminds it and reminds us that are somewhat familiar with it in case it's been a while and we don't remember, because after all, a lot of that lore is, you know, a couple decades old now. And so anyway, he reminds the courtroom that the Shi'ar at one time went to Earth and killed all of Jean Grey's family, and that they have been looking for retribution for the Phoenix, against the Phoenix for all this time, and this is not the first time that they have killed innocent people. And there's a big deal made out of the fact that Jean Grey is, of course, innocent and is not the version of her that actually did the stuff, did all these horrible things to the Shi'ar with the Phoenix. And so it was kind of interesting to see Jason putting the Shi'ar kind of in their place a little bit. And of course, this guy has his own faults and his own sins and things, and so obviously he's not like fully in the right as far as, you know, just all of the galaxy is concerned, but on this particular point, he's absolutely right, and it was really fun to see that showdown. Also, everybody is, or at least a lot of our major players are used to really interesting ends in this and get some things to do. We've got so many characters in this book that not everybody can be utilized all the time. The Starjammers so far have kind of just been here, but they're kind of just around and helping us out. But here we get some great stuff actually for Angela to do. It was nice to finally see her kind of step up. Then the cliffhanger at the end was really kind of surprising, and it's going to be interesting to see where this comes down ultimately on whether or not young Jean Grey should have to at all be held accountable for what the Phoenix did. And the end of this makes it seem like it might not go in the obvious place. So that's really interesting and exciting. And suddenly, I can't wait to read the last issue of this. I thought Bendis was really spot on with everybody in this. There's a lot of moments of hilarity, but it's also a pretty heavy book as well. And just as far as the themes and stuff go, but there's a lot of thrilling action. The art is fantastic, and don't have enough good things to say about it. Really, really great issue. Next up, it's Avengers Undercover #1. This is the follow-up to Avengers Arena, focusing on the characters who survived Arcade's murder world and how they're handling living on Earth after all of the craziness that ensued there, and after seeing their friends die, having to kill some of their friends, and how they're dealing with the unwanted, in most cases, fame of that. And a lot of it is dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and that kind of thing. This is by Dennis Hopeless with art by Kev Walker, and I really enjoyed this. This catches you up pretty well on Avengers Arena if you didn't read that book or finish it, and I did not finish it. I need to get back to it because I really enjoyed the first couple issues and just for various reasons dropped it, didn't get around to finishing it, but I did like what I read of it. And This issue does a pretty good job of catching readers up to speed, though I imagine people who are familiar with Avengers Arena are probably going to read about a lot of things that they know already. There is a lot of talking about who died, how they died, and who each of these characters are, and what was revealed of them in Avengers Arena, leading to the people that they are now versus the people that they used to be. I found all that really fascinating because I hadn't read all of that, and I appreciated all of that exposition and explanation. I didn't feel like the exposition in dialogue was too cumbersome or unnatural. It all worked pretty well. The way people were talking about things made a great deal of sense. There is a character in this who, as the cover suggests, is kind of becoming a villain, and I won't say who, since that's the big question on the cover of this. But there is one of the characters that survived is now trying to hunt down and kill Arcade and can't find him, and is somewhat appropriately posting videos of him trying to kill Arcade up on the internet, because if you didn't read Avengers Arena, basically what happens at the end of that apparently is everybody finds out exactly what happens because Arcade uploads everything on the internet and uploads all the videos of what exactly happened up on YouTube, and it becomes an instant success. People watch it like a reality show, and a lot of this is about the kind of savagery and horribleness of people deriving pleasure from other people's pain, and people being entertained by watching other people in reality getting killed. And obviously a lot of the same themes, and the basic premise is very similar to Hunger Games, but of course where this is going is very different from that. And I'm really enjoying it. There's a character in this who is basking in the glory of that fame, and there's a lot of question about the morality of that. Of course, there's a lot of question about the morality of the guy who wants to kill Arcade, but it also is sympathetic. It makes sense, and it's hard not to sympathize with that character for doing that. So anyway, I really recommend this one. This is of course going to have a lot of characters that if you didn't read Avengers Arena, you may not be familiar with, but I think the book does a pretty good job of drawing them, not just on the page, but also drawing their characters and their personalities in the fiction. It's really quite good. I really liked it, and if you like teen drama, I think you're gonna like this. But there's a lot of thoughtfulness in this book, and I really appreciate it. I think Dennis Hopeless always does really good work, and no exception here. Dear Marvel Comics, if you have to have your line currently called All New Marvel Now instead of just Marvel Now, could you at least not have the word new in it for as long as DC has in 52? I mean, I don't think that there's any actual danger of that, but just want to make sure. Let's not have it say All New Marvel Now for like 3 years. Let's jump over to IDW now with Ninja Turtles number 32 by Tom Waltz with art by Ross Campbell. I'm kind of missing Santaluco on this book. I haven't talked about that, but for this particular arc, and really, I mean, Campbell's a great artist too. But for this arc, I think his art style actually suits this a little bit more. Santaluco is the guy you want for the big, crazy, over-the-top action, and for the feudal Japan stuff, most certainly. Here, the Campbell's having this more kind of intimate farm town, more kind of nature-centric stuff, and still some absolutely dynamic action in this. But I do think that the art style here is suitable for this. But boy, I hope Santaluca comes back soon, because he's my favorite artist on this. He's really great. So anyway, what we've got going on here is mostly Leonardo starting to very much find himself again, and he's finding himself through being pitted up against the Foot Clan again, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's really fun and endearing to watch. Leonardo and his brothers are having to fight off this giant bird, this big eagle mutate, who was introduced a couple issues ago, kind of standing around waiting to pounce and waiting to strike, and finally he's been given the go-ahead, and so he jumps in, and he's attacking the Ninja Turtles, and he wants revenge from the Shredder on Leonardo and the Ninja Turtles for his losing his Chunin and all of that stuff. And so a whole lot of action in this. They blow up the barn, and all of a sudden there's this big explosion, and suddenly April is having to deal with her parents, and how she's going to explain what's going on there. So all of that family drama is really interesting and fun to read about. I really like April's relationship with both her mother and her father, and her relationship with her mother in particular is quite heartwarming and believable, and not too after school special. There are some places here and there where it feels like it could go off the rails and be a little bit too easy and a little bit too perfect, and it's not that at all. They have this really kind of intense moment. Not that they're angry at each other or anything, but where suddenly everything comes together, and April is having to explain things to her mother about what's been going on with the mutagen and all of her work at StockGen, and that's all really interesting. This is going in a direction we've never seen April go before, where suddenly her family is a big part of this and really important. I always liked the idea that her father had something to do with the mutagen, and now we're really exploring that and really exploring the properties of the mutagen. I do have to question all of the things this stuff is able to do. It's beginning to feel a little bit like Kryptonite in Smallville, where it will create mutates, but if you give it to humans, it heals them, and I'm not sure how exactly that works. Because the mutagen in Ninja Turtles before would always, if humans took it, it would mutate them also, and of course, they are, come to think of it with Bebop and Rocksteady, using it to mutate them, to merge them with animals. But I suppose maybe it's, if you put animals in the mix, it will merge them and create a anthropomorphized version of that animal with the brain of the human being that was in it. And then if you give it to a human, just a regular human with nothing else there, I guess it heals them. Kind of strange scientific properties, but we are dealing with a lot of pseudoscience in this, and it's intelligent and sophisticated in all of the ways it needs to be, storytelling-wise. So anyway, I really love all the family dynamics, not just April's family, but of course Leonardo and his family, and it's nice to see Leonardo finally getting pulled back into the fold a little bit, but also we're getting to see the ways in which Leonardo has changed and the ways in which he might never be the same again, and boy, he's really intense in this, and I really enjoyed that, and it's really unpredictable right now. I have no idea where things are going a lot of the time in this book. It keeps surprising me and circumventing my expectations, so really good stuff. Next up, Powerpuff Girls, number 7. This is by Derek Charm, writing and drawing just like Little did the last arc. I'm really going to miss Little on this book. I thought he had the perfect sensibilities for this. I thought that it felt very much like actual episodes of this show, but just longer, like maybe a TV movie or something. And the art looked just like the TV show. Here we've got a guy who is also right for this material. It certainly has. He certainly got the right voices for these characters, and it's the right kind of comedy. The art is a little bit different. The character models are all exactly what they look like in the show, but then the colors are what are mostly different. It's a little bit more grimy looking. It's a little bit more muted and a little bit more dreary, but not to the point of the new Powerpuff Girls special that came out a couple months ago. That was like really muted and dreary looking. This just a little bit more than usual. I think the textures are really kind of cool looking. So it's a somewhat different aesthetic, but it still mostly looks like that show. So I don't know. I'm gonna miss the more big splashy thing, but I enjoyed this too, and I wonder if he's not doing this for this particular arc because of what it's about. What we have here is a really fun plot where where the monsters from Monster Island have decided to all show up in Townsville and throw one big party in order to celebrate their new ruler, who has decided that the first thing he wants to do with his new power is to throw a big giant party and destroy the city of Townsville with all these monsters, and finally break the really stupid, silly rule they had where only one monster at a time could show up in Townsville. And he says, why are we doing it that way? How about we all go? And it turns out that the big monster that the Monster King is Steve, the monster from the episode where all the Powerpuff Girls decide that they have to be different superheroes, and Buttercup pretends to be Spawn, and Blossom pretends to be Captain America. That one, this is a direct sequel to that. In that, we found out that there was this place called Monster Island. That's where all these monsters come from, and that they're all in competition to see who can last the longest in a fight with the Powerpuff Girls. Well, when Steve finally takes over, he has a lot more logic and sense, and decides to throw this huge party and have all the monsters show up at once. And so the Powerpuff Girls are having to deal with every single monster from Monster Island, including a whole bunch that we've seen before in the show, and it's kind of fun to see all of those cameos. This is really funny as usual, and I think that the writing is certainly up to snuff from the previous arc. I'm so glad that this book is continuing. Thought originally that this was supposed to be a miniseries. I guess it did well enough for them to keep publishing it, and I wonder if they're going to keep with this rotating writer and artist formula. I also wonder if they're going to keep with writer-artists all the time. I think that's really interesting that this book so far has already had two people that are both writing and drawing this book. That's kind of unusual. Anyway, I'm definitely recommending this, and this is the start of a new arc, so if you didn't read the last arc, certainly a really great jumping-on point, and a really fantastic place to start if you really like the TV show, because it's got a really fun sense of continuity also. And now, the latest in X-Files Conspiracy. This is the X-Files and the Crow, and this is a one-shot, but it is part 5 of 6 of the Conspiracy series. And as I said before, the way that what they're doing with this book is they're taking the lone gunmen from the X-Files, and they're having them going across the country, meeting other major characters from other big licensed properties that IDW has, and they're investigating this big, convoluted mystery that is impossible, in my opinion, to keep up with. I really don't get it. I have no idea what's going on. I kind of feel like if I was reading all of this together, maybe maybe it'd be a little bit easier to keep up with. But really, the point of these is the novelty of the lone gunmen meeting all of these characters, and it really feels like they're going across country, just going on a field trip. I'm really finding myself not caring at all about this very complicated, overly involved plot that seems to have like every sci-fi trope embedded in it as they could possibly come up with. But anyway, in this, that kind of gets put into the background a little bit until the last few pages, and I enjoyed this as much or more than I have any of these so far, and a lot of it is because X-Files and The Crow just make too much sense to put together. It's about the afterlife, it's about ghosts. The Crow existing in the same universe as the X-Files is not anything like hard to swallow, and just makes too much sense to put these together. I could really see a book that really delves into the Crow from the perspective of Mulder and Scully. I'd kind of like to see that, actually, seeing Mulder and Scully having to investigate a situation where someone is brought back to life via the Crow, maybe a 2 or 3 issue miniseries or something. This is okay, though. What we have here is a police officer who gets killed, and he's with his girlfriend, who's also a police officer, and she's I think cheating on her husband with this guy, but weirdly they make me like them together even despite the infidelity, and they get murdered in a car wreck, and the Crow comes to this guy, brings him back to life, and of course, as always happens, happens with the Crow, he's trying to enact vengeance on his murderers. And the lone gunmen kind of just along for the ride in this. They kind of just show up and they're investigating this and they're learning about it piece by piece. But this really is about this guy brought to life with the Crow, and it feels like a story that could have been really told without the lone gunmen. And yet the tones really fit together, and so, like I said, I enjoyed it for that. But I cared a lot more about this guy's story than I did at all about the lone gunmen in this. And one of the things that I thought was really fun about this too is the sense of humor of the Crow itself. The Crow speaks to the guy that it resurrects and is really funny. There's one part where it uses a metaphor and then goes back on it and decides that was a really stupid metaphor, and it kind of pokes fun at itself, and I really enjoyed that. Honestly, reading this made me kind of want to go back to the Crow, because I read the first couple issues of that and wasn't fully sold on it. It was okay, but I wasn't real impressed, and if this is more like that book reads now, I think I might want to go back to it. So if nothing else, it made me want to give the current Crow series another chance. But as I said, it's okay. But the Crow stuff is a lot more fun in this than the X-Files stuff. My last IDW book for the day is X-Files Season 10, number 10. This is by Joe Harris with art by Menton to the third. Menton, he's got a 3 above his name, and it's a lowercase m, so it must be some kind of odd pseudonym. His art is really, really interesting, and with Tony Moy, I guess Tony Moy helping out on art. This is really the most interesting issue of this so far. The art is astounding. It's incredibly unusual. Every other page it feels like a different art style, and a lot of that is because we're jumping back and forth through the history of the Smoking Man, filling in a lot of gaps there. Most of this is the cigarette smoking man looking at various files from his life and from Mulder's dad's life, and he's going back and remembering stuff, and we get to go back and learn a lot about his history with him. I found some of this a little bit hard to follow because I'm a little bit rusty on my X-Files, and every time I read an issue of this, I feel like I need to go back and rewatch the entire series so that I can refresh or at least go back and read some wiki and refresh myself on some of the history of some of these characters, some of the lore and mythology. But some of the stuff that I was able to pick out from what I do remember was really fun, and I appreciated it. For instance, we get the moment that Mulder is that young Mulder. Young Fox Mulder is first called Spooky. That's in here, and I thought that was kind of neat. So, but the idea of this is mostly about the smoking man's sense of purpose and how he is nothing without the people that he's been doing everything he's been doing to try to protect, and or at least that's what he claims. But that's certainly what it seems like. You know, the smoking man is such a mysterious character. You never exactly know what his motivations are, but he seems incredibly sincere here when he tells his boss, the person that's over him in this, that he really cares about his family, and everything he's done has been in order to protect them. And if he doesn't have them, what does he have? And that's really what this is about. And there's a line, and I don't feel like I'm giving too much away by mentioning this line, but at the end there's this line that kind of sums up the whole thing, where the cigarette smoking man says that extraordinary men always want the most extraordinary, the most ordinary things. I think it's really interesting to see him humanized in the way he is here, and seeing him at the end of his life. He's so old now, he looks like he could keel over at any minute, honestly, and considering all of the horrible things that happened to him in the show and stuff, he looks like death is knocking on his door at any moment. And anyway, I was really riveted by this. Next up, Spawn, number 241, of course written by Todd McFarlane with art by Simon Kurdansky, as has been the case for the last several dozen issues. I like this issue better than I have the last couple. Here we get some actual interplay finally with Jim Downing and his supposed support system, who he's not trusting, not allowing to help him out with his foundation, with his powers, all of the emotional support he really kind of needs. And there are, unfortunately, not a lot of really interesting character reasons for all of that, and it's a lot more about, as usual with this book, the really convoluted mythology. So basically the deal here is Cagliostro tells Jim that because of the fact that he has sprouted wings and seems to be, I don't know if he's more controlled by heaven or what exactly the wings mean, but because of the fact that he has sprouted wings while wearing the Spawn costume, which I guess is different than sprouting wings while you're not wearing the Spawn costume, that's a bigger, more scary deal for some reason, according to Cog, he has to keep his friends at arm's length. So he's doing that. They give him kind of an intervention at the beginning of this, telling him that he's acting strange, and they want to know why, and they want to know why he's not letting them help him. And then, as this book often degenerates into, it turns into a really obnoxious shouting match, where the drama is fueled by just people yelling at each other, and isn't about anything that's actually very interesting or natural. The dialogue in this is really cringeworthy, a lot of it. I hate to say that, and I know every time I review Spawn, I seem to give it a negative review. The big reason I buy this book, of course, is because I collect Spawn, and I've not been happy at all with the way it's been going lately. It's still super slow. It's slow as molasses. It's not especially engaging, and as has been the case for a really long time now, the stories are not being told through the pictures as much as just people standing around explaining things. That's still kind of happening. This is denser than it's been in a while, though. That's good. We've got these vampires who have been a big deal for a while finally coming upon a dead zone, which is what they've been looking for in order to try to break their way into heaven, and it looks like they're finally going to maybe be able to do that. At the end of this, there's another big character reveal. It seems like every issue of this ends with a big character reveal, somebody we've seen before in Spawn, that has shown up that's going to stop them, or try to stop them from making their way into heaven, and try to take over God's throne, or stand up to God, or whatever it is they're doing. So anyway, as usual, I'm a little down on this. It's kind of dull. I feel like this, script-wise, it's a first draft, and I feel that way a lot with McFarlane. I feel like he's always got some pretty good ideas here, despite convoluted and sometimes nonsensical. But he'll have kind of a spark of a cool idea, but it feels like a rushed-out script that he kind of wrote at the 11th hour. That if you just spent a little bit more time with it, or let some other eyes get put on it, he writes in the letters page, somebody asks him what he finds most difficult about, the kinds of stories he finds most difficult to write, and his answer is mostly, well, I don't really have time to think about it because I have deadlines to meet, which is somewhat understandable. I get that. You don't want to be so much of a perfectionist that you can't get your book out on time, but at the same time, I just feel like it could be, I feel like the stories could be a little bit more thoughtful. I feel like the dialogue is way too melodramatic and way too unnatural, and not the way real people talk at all. And even within the context of a heightened supernatural fantasy, it feels like people are not sounding like anybody would ever actually talk. So anyway, that's how I feel about this. Hopefully, maybe a little bit more action and excitement next issue with what we saw at the end of this one. And now a couple indie books from other presses. The first one from Boom Studios. This is The Returning #1, first of a 4-issue miniseries. This is written by Jason Starr with art by Andrea Moody. I thought this was a really interesting concept. This is a kind of supernatural thriller set a few years in the future. This is set in 2022. I'm not really sure why this is set in the future, other than to just kind of give you the sense, at least if you're reading it right now when it's published, of here's something that could happen down the road, and trying to kind of create kind of a real world feel, instead of trying to create like an alternate reality feel of this is going on right now, this very moment. So it's like 8 years from now, mysteriously, when people are there are a lot of people that when they die they have a near-death experience, and this has become so frequent that they call them NDEs. There is an acronym for this, near-death experiences, and a lot of them, in fact, most of these cases, people will be dead for a few minutes, they'll come back to life. I didn't really get a sense that it was like medical science bringing them back from the dead, but it might be that that's it. The book doesn't really go into the details, but basically what happens is somebody will die, and then they will experience part of the afterlife, and then they'll wake up and they'll lose their minds, and something is missing, something human, something some part of their rational mind is missing, and they, for no good reason, start attacking people, killing people, and they can't help themselves. Well, in this, a girl goes to her prom, and it's kind of your typical she's naive and kind of wide-eyed and ready to tackle life, and she goes to the prom with this boy who seems just fine and nice at first, but turns out just wants to get her away from the prom and go have sex with her, and so he's trying to they're driving away, and he's trying to force her to be okay with sleeping together, and just when you think it's probably going to turn into a rape situation, they get into a car accident, and he gets killed, and she's dead for 5 minutes, and you actually get to see her go to hell, or what seems to be probably hell. Anyway, she experiences a horrible, awful afterlife scenario, which is described, by the way, as being so awful no one could possibly imagine it or come up with it themselves. And I always find that kind of a funny thing to say in a comic book or any sort of narrative, because I'm looking at it. Someone imagined it. It's impossible to imagine. Well, there it is. But anyway, so she wakes up, and it's about the way she's being, it's about all the prejudice that people have against her, because they think that she's going to inevitably freak out and start killing people, and the whole world is against her now, and eventually she becomes a fugitive, and that's what the story's about. I thought it was a really interesting setup. I thought it was a good examination of human condition and how people can react when they're scared and when they're paranoid, and how oversimplified things can become when you latch on to patterns that might not always stay the same. But then there's a little bit of a hint of it is possible that she actually is going to be what they call a changer, somebody who comes back from the dead and starts killing people, and maybe there is a little bit of that in her. We don't know yet, and so I thought it was a very thoughtful kind of setup. It's a good thriller. It's scary. It's a very moody kind of book. The art is kind of gloomy, and I liked it overall. I thought some of the dialogue and some of the narration was a little bit melodramatic, and could have used maybe another pass through. Some of that seemed a little bit juvenile, but the ideas are great. So anyway, definitely recommending this one. Pretty decent. My last book for today is a one-shot called Nosferatu Wars from Dark Horse Comics. This is written by Steve Niles with art, once again, by Menton 3, or the Third, or To the Third Power. It's kind of funny that here his name, I've never seen this artist before. His name Menton just 3, but then in the X-Files book it's Menton to the 3rd power. I'm not sure what his name actually is or what he's actually calling himself. But once again, we've got that same kind of charcoaly, really shadowy, haunting, surrealistic kind of artwork here, and it creates quite the nightmarish atmosphere. I really enjoyed the art in this quite a bit more than the story, actually, although there's a lot of really interesting ideas here, but as a one-shot, it left a bit to be desired. This is apparently collecting the first 4 issues of, or the first 4 parts of a story that I guess is supposed to be a complete story from Dark Horse Presents, and so it's collecting all these chapters together into a regular length comic book. I guess it was published as in Dark Horse's anthology book that way in short chapters, and I kind of had a tough time getting with this and into it and getting sucked into this world until the second half of this, and things don't really start getting interesting until the actual inciting incident of the Nosferatu Wars. I'm not real sure why the story didn't open with that. So basically, you've got a vampire couple with a whole lot of presence. These guys are really old school Dracula in the way that they're carrying themselves, and I really enjoy their chemistry and their rapport together. They want to get married, and they're looking for this priest's abode, and they manage to get a doctor burned at the stake on the way there, so that he won't reveal that they're actually demons, because he figures that out. And I think the whole thing is a little bit dull until you get to the actual ceremony where they get married, and then after that, they do something that incites this big war with another set of vampires, and then at the very end of it, it suddenly gets really sci-fi. There's suddenly this random sci-fi element that gets tossed into this, and this felt a lot like a setup. It had kind of pilotitis in a lot of ways. Like it wanted to introduce all these elements, but it had a difficult time doing it in a natural way, and like it's building up to a series. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if there's going to be more of this. It's like I said, collected as one story, but it really felt like it wanted to do a lot more. Like I said, this is a lot of style and a little bit of substance, but the style is the reason to read this. I think that it's an absolutely fabulous looking book, but I felt like the story kind of left a bit to be desired. I had a hard time getting really invested in these characters, and I kind of wish that I had spent the whole time just with these 2 vampires, but after they got married, because that's when things get really kind of interesting. But anyway, if you like horror, if you're into vampires, if you're into like silent horror films, especially that kind of stuff, and like pulp horror, this is probably a book that'll be right up your alley. And it's time now for Book of the Week. My favorite book for this week was undoubtedly Batman number 29. Can't go wrong with this book. Capullo has been tearing it up with the art in this. I could not believe some of these beautiful action panels in the rain. There's a lot of just brilliant characterization in this book, and wow, was this a dense read. Every page was challenging me, was making me think about stuff, was really putting me in Batman's head and making me appreciate this guy. What a fantastic issue this week. And my favorite cover this week was X-Files and The Crow. I thought this was kind of an ingenious idea to do crop circles and the crow as a indentation, as kind of a crow crop circle. I thought that was really clever, and immediately made me go, these two things just totally go together. So I found myself with that cover thinking that before I even popped the issue open, and then really had that experience with it. And now it's time, as always, to jump over to Superhero Enthusiast with books Captain Logan didn't read.
Hello, Geekvolutionaries. I am, of course, Alex, Superhero Enthusiast, once again here with BCLDR. books Captain Logan doesn't read. And I read a lot of really cool stuff and a lot of really weird stuff this week, so let's just get right into it. My first book, as always, is Adventures of Superman, this time number 46. Holy crap. This comic opens with Golden Age Superman and Golden Age Batman teaming up with Dracula to fight a haunted castle full of Frankenstein monsters. If that's not the coolest thing you've ever heard, then I'm sorry, but I don't think we can be friends. But actually, that doesn't sort of open this. This is framed as a story told by grown-up Commandy in the future about the past and how everything seemingly went wrong for Superman at some point. And I love that framing device. I'm really curious to see how this goes because this story just gets Superman. As a character, they just totally nail him. They have that classic line in here from All-Star Superman as well that, you know, there's always a way. That is Superman, that's who he is. And I love that. And this issue is part of a three-part story, and it's all about how Superman has inspired mankind. And like I said, it's Golden Age Superman. You have that classic costume from Action Comics #1, the real Action Comics #1. And basically we see how he sort of inspired the Silver Age. We see that mankind has built a rocket ship, and we're going to go head out to the stars because you know, we've learned that, hey, we're not alone in the universe. There's other stuff out there. Let's go find out what it is. And Superman helped usher that in. And Superman as a character in this is very, very humble. He's talking to a scientist character who I thought was FDR at first because he looks a lot like him and he's in a wheelchair. And so I just thought it was FDR, but it's not. But basically mankind goes up into space in the rocket and there's some type of trouble. And it comes back down and Superman tries to save it. And of course this is Superman who can't fly. It's Golden Age Superman. He can only leap. And so we see that in this, which was really cool. Golden Age Superman is kind of my favorite version of Superman. A little bit more down to earth. A little bit more rough and tumble. Man of the people. That really resonates with me. But the rocket just like disappears. And so the challenge is for Superman, you know, what happened to the rocket, how, you know, I need to save these people, I'm Superman, but of course he doesn't call himself that, so he has to solve that problem, and we learn at the end of this, Kamandi is saying, this isn't a story of salvation, this is a story of damnation. So, like I said, I'm really curious to see where this goes. Already, like, I know I exaggerate a lot, but this is easily already one of my favorite Superman stories that I've ever read. Part of it is just the classic, you know, Superman stuff, but they just get this character. And I think a lot of the stuff with regards to kind of Superman being an alien in First Contact and all that stuff, not to strike controversy here, but I think is handled far better in this than it is in, you know, a recent Superman movie. But I'll just leave it at that. This is totally awesome. You should totally pick it up. If you haven't been reading Adventures of Superman, you should know this is an anthology, so it's just a short story. If you don't want to read the book consistently, this is a story within it that's worth picking up. Totally recommend it. My next book from DC was also digital first, and that's Justice League Beyond, number 15. Or I guess Justice League Beyond 2.0, number 15. Like I said, in previous times I reviewed this story that's going on right now is Brainiac is attacking and taking over the world, and this is part 7 of 8, so we're getting right to the climax of this story, right to the end. I'll start at the end of this one. There's a big kind of a cliffhanger at the end of this that reveals that a certain character who we have not seen yet in the Beyond universe, and this, we're talking a big character, we're talking one of the big 7 in DC, that we haven't seen yet make an appearance. I won't say who it is, but if you've been following my reviews of this, I mentioned where the Justice League are making their last stand against Brainiac, and this character is very tied to that place. I'll just say that. But Brainiac is attacking this place, and there's this hilarious panel in this where Aquaman is like, hey Brainiac, I'm not going to let you, attack the island, you're going to have to go through me first. But Aquaman is standing behind him when he says that. So it's just, I don't know why the artist drew it that way. Just sort of bizarre. Aquaman, the Ringo Starr of the Justice League. But not really a whole lot happens in this. It's just kind of them fighting and continuing on with their plan from last time. An interesting thing that I mentioned before is all of the villains, and in particular the magical villains, have teamed up with the Justice League in this to help fight Brainiac, because magic trumps science. And they've realized that it's a losing battle, and like Felix Faust is in the middle of fighting Brainiac with them, and he's just like, yeah, so long guys, I'm just gonna screw off to another dimension, and you guys can deal with this. I don't think we're gonna win. So I guess it shows still that, you know, the villains can pitch in when they think it is in their interest, but when it stops being in their interest, yeah, they're still villains. So it was kind of cool to see, and I mean, you don't get to see Felix Faust in many comics anymore, so it's just kind of cool to see him pop up again, because I know he was in the Justice League show. With the big cliffhanger, like I said, I'm really excited to see where this goes, and to see this character finally make their appearance in the Beyond universe, because I always wondered what happened. They were sort of in the main lineup. I guess their place on the team had sort of been filled by somebody else, but I'm super excited. Like I've said every time, this book is really good, so definitely check it out. I'm going to head on over to Dark Horse with Star Wars number 15. One of the things that I've really liked about this book is that, aside from a couple issues that have been diversions to talk about Darth Vader, Princess Leia has been the focus of this, and she doesn't really necessarily, I guess, have a reputation for being this totally cool, capable female lead character, because, you know, she's the princess. But if you think back to the original Star Wars, like, Han and Luke go to rescue her, and she ends up saving them from the stormtroopers. She is one of the leaders of the rebellion, and I love that, and I love that they're focusing on her. In this issue, she's decided to make a very tough decision, and that is to marry a member of a royal family of some random planet in the galaxy in order to secure resources for the rebels. She is very aware that this is just a marriage for politics' sake, and who she's marrying is aware of that too, but it's also clear that he has some feelings for her. I don't blame him, she's pretty cool. And the other part of this issue is centered around Rogue Squadron and the birth of Rogue Squadron. They've finally been approved for the name, the team is training, getting their stuff in order, but Luke is just off. Just something's not right with him, and I'm not even sure what it is yet, but we see at the end of this issue, he kind of goes off, he's very unhappy. He gets some looks on his face that say, oh, this guy's being tempted by the dark side. And so I guess we'll see what happens with Luke there, and with Princess Leia, because obviously this takes place between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and we know in Empire Strikes Back Princess Leia is not married, so we know this has to not work out. We also know from other things in the expanded universe that she is courted by another royal at a certain point and ends up marrying Han Solo. So I guess with these types of things, it's not about where this is going to end up, it's about how it's going to end up there. So it's kind of interesting to see. I think I watched the final season of Clone Wars on Netflix, or The Clone Wars, I guess, just to specify, because Clone Wars is something different, on Netflix recently, and that show was so very good, but unfortunately its job was to kind of staple two, in my opinion, not very good movies together, and so there are limitations for this kind of storytelling, and that we, like I said, we do know where this is going to end up, but I guess, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, as they say, and this is a heck of a ride so far. I'm really enjoying this book. If you like Star Wars, Brian Wood's run has been really excellent. I'm going to jump over to another indie book from Primal Paper Comics, and that's The Ends. Now, I read issues 1 to 3. I have 4 to 9, but I haven't gotten to them yet. This is a really interesting story, and has some really unique artwork, but I'll get to that. The story in general is basically, it's the end of the world, and the only heroes that are around to save us are terrible. So basically, it's like the X-Men. Can you not play drums while I'm trying to do my reviews? Thanks. But more seriously, as far as I can tell, these are all characters who appear in other publications by Primal Paper. And the first 3 issues basically introduce us to them. There's the Peregrine, who's like super, super scary. He's the first vigilante in this universe. There's a guy called the Blade, who's an Asian sword master, but is quite... He's sort of like Dr. Manhattan in a way, in that he's extremely, extremely capable at what he does, but he's relatively apathetic towards the rest of humanity. And he has a lot of really great lines in this. There's this speech where he talks about swordsmanship and fighting, and references some stuff from the Tao Te Ching and some Bruce Lee stuff. And of course he kind of subverts somewhat of our expectations with how martial arts is often talked about, and fluidity in water. And he says you have to strike like a butcher. Why? Because a butcher knows that his prey, I guess, is already dead. It's all about that mindset of you go in to win. And I love that. And there are a lot of really great lines like that too. There's a line that references kind of a classic Reagan quote in here by a scientist character that's really cool. I'm really liking this cast, and I can see why they are this group of misfits who you would not want saving the world, but I also see that there's potential in these people, and they could pull it off in the end. The art is the big thing in this, though. Is it's sort of a photoshopped pastiche, sort of a collage thing going on. Very reminiscent of some of the, I guess, underground zine style artwork that we saw. I guess that sort of thing started back in, I guess, the 60s-ish through the 70s and well into the 90s, but more in the underground scene. And I think that kind of fits with this, since it is, I guess, like the end of the world, and it is sort of, I mean, this is an indie book, and it just all fits. Overall, I quite like it. There's some use of certain filters that I'm just, in general, not really a big fan of in Photoshop. I would kind of maybe prefer if they were kept somewhat more consistent. I'm just a sucker for halftone a lot. I guess it's just because my comics background and stuff. But overall, like, I can't really complain. This looks very, very good, and it's a really unique style. There really isn't anything else out there that I've seen, at least right now, that's anything like this. So Primal Paper, they're a small company based in Norfolk, Virginia. Totally give them your money. This is excellent. The Ends 1 to 3. I'm going to jump on over to Marvelous Marvel this time, and start off with Captain Marvel, number 1. There was some talk about this being renumbered as a number 1. Kelly Sue DeConnick's previous run with this character ended with Carol Danvers making a sacrifice that led to her losing all of her memories. And that is a pretty big sacrifice, because continuity of self and memories are a pretty big part of what we kind of consider to be us. And so it kind of makes sense to me that this would start over again as number 1. I'm totally on board with Marvel's renumbering things. I don't really care about things getting up to 700, 900, or any of that stuff. It's just a number. And the point is to make things accessible to new readers, and to signify that naming it number 1 helps. But this issue is very, very good. It's mostly just kind of setting up what I think is going to happen. Basically, Tony Stark, there's some stuff happens, and Tony comes to Carol, and they kick some butt. There's an awesome scene where they're having a conversation while also taking out some criminals, and that's kind of a classic thing in superhero comics, especially team books, but it's something that I always love when it pops up, because it's hilarious. But basically, Tony's realized, like, hey, we need a permanent Avengers presence in space, and he wants somebody to head it up. And he's kind of toying with Carol, because the other big pilot in the Avengers is Rhodey. And I didn't realize that he was Iron Patriot in the comics now as well. I don't know if that was changed because of the movie or what, but I'm down with it. But anyway, he appears in this, and he and Carol are actually sort of having a relationship that's on the DL. And basically, Carol has to decide whether or not she wants a job and she wants to go up in space. And she kind of needs it right now. She kind of needs the isolation to deal with everything that happened in the previous run and losing her memories and kind of finding herself again. So this issue actually opens with the stuff in space. There are a lot of great Star Wars references in this. She kind of tries to do a Jedi mind trick on somebody, and it ends up not working. She's like, it's worth a try, and then they start fighting. But this is really excellently written, as good as it was before. I was really waiting for this to come back, and I'm happy it is back. This book is excellent. As far as a jumping on point, because I did talk about it being a number one, I don't know to what degree it is actually a good jumping on point. Like, I think it works, you could do it, but you would get so much more out of it and so much more impact for what goes on in the story if you have read the previous run. It's only, I think, 17 or 18 issues, so a year and a half-ish, so it's not too much to get caught up on, but it's very good, so it's worth your time. My next book from Marvel was Hawkeye, number 17. This one was one that I was kind of on. I mean, it's very good, it's just more of a taste issue. Weirdly enough, we kind of got an interruption from the cliffhanger and what's going on right now in the Hawkeye book with this. This is a holiday story in March, which is a little bit odd. The bulk of this issue is basically Hawkeye and the people in his building are watching some type of kids program during, I guess, the winter Christmas season. It's about a bunch of super pets, and while there are a lot of references to Super Friends and Justice League stuff, all of the animals they're holiday animals, so there's like a Hanukkah cat and stuff like that, and a Kwanzaa crocodile and stuff. But basically every one of them is a stand-in for somebody in the Avengers, and there's a dog that is a stand-in for Hawkeye. And this whole story is kind of symbolic of Hawkeye's a character and everything that he's gone through in the book thus far. Even the tracksuit mafia guys appear as like wolves in this, and instead of saying bro all the time, it's dog. They say dog, dog, dog. So it's kind of funny. It's very clever. It's just kind of a taste issue. I was really excited to see the next part of the story, since there was a big cliffhanger last time. And I don't celebrate Christmas or really like the holiday season stuff at all. So for me, it's just a taste issue. If you're like me and you're just kind of waiting for the story to go on, this one might be worth skipping. But if you're in the mood for something kind of crazy and weird and fun, this would be worth picking up. My next book from Marvel was Daredevil Road Warrior, number 3. I guess there's only one more left in this. This is just kind of a weekly thing for this month in between the old Daredevil Mark Waid run and the new Daredevil Mark Waid run where he's in San Francisco. I feel kind of silly praising Mark Waid since he's like a 20-30 year veteran of the comics industry at this point, and he's totally refined his craft at this stage in the game. But this is excellent. And this guy that Daredevil's been following, we find out he's actually a shapeshifter. He's a changeling. And so naturally they go with the classic trope of Daredevil fighting himself. So that's always fun to see. We do learn the origin of the changeling guy in this. I won't spoil it for anybody since it is pretty cool. We see kind of a classic Marvel villain sort of show up here. And he sees the world differently, kind of like Daredevil does. Obviously he doesn't have the enhanced senses, but he sees things through the lens of science, and there's a really cool panel that displays that in here, and that he sees Daredevil, and it's basically just as a mass of equations.
If you're wondering why you've suddenly gone blind like Daredevil, it's because my SD card decided to stop working, so I'm going to do my final review this week on audio, and that book is Superior Spider-Man, number 29. Where to even begin with this book this week? All of the different storylines within Superior Spider-Man and in this Goblin Nation arc are kind of converging and converge at the end of this issue. You've got J. Jonah Jameson, Mayor of New York, with all of the Spider Slayer team that he's developed to fight Spider-Man since he's unhappy with him now. You've got Otto and Green Goblin kind of going head to head, and that's mostly the bulk of this issue. Green Goblin is tormenting Otto Spider-Man, who I'm just going to refer to as Otto, And he's going through Otto's whole history and basically just blowing all of the important places to him up. And he takes a hostage at a certain point in this who is connected to Otto. I won't say who it is, but it's all kind of premised on the idea that, hey, this guy's important to him, but, Otto kind of laughs when he sees him because it's a guy that he hates. And if you've been reading this book, you know who that is. And Otto actually had to save this guy a couple issues ago, and this guy makes kind of a sacrifice play in order to help Otto in this, and he tells him that his whole life he's been this terrible person, which Otto knew, because that's why Otto hated him, and he said that Spider-Man's heroism in saving him inspired him to be a better person, and that's something that, while Otto has been very successful at being Spider-Man, he hasn't really done yet. He hasn't made that connection with people the way that Peter Parker as Spider-Man has. And he gets kind of the first glimpse of that here. And while he is wearing a mask, I do see that has affected him a lot. And I'm really curious to see how Otto reacts to this going forward. I don't think we really see Peter in this issue at all, kind of sifting through Otto's mind. He is still in there, but I guess he doesn't make an appearance in this one. I'm not sure how far away his triumphant return will be, but it can't be too long at this point. I think this was issue 3 of 5 in the Goblin Nation arc, but the company that's built the Spider Slayers for J. Jonah Jameson kind of has, I guess, some ties with Norman Osborn, and I'll just say there's kind of a big twist and I guess trump card that Green Goblin plays at the end of this, and it looks like things are kind of wrapping up for the Superior Spider-Man. He did not expect things to go so poorly. I guess that's the arrogance of a supervillain, but this book just continues to be really excellent. I get a lot of people just aren't into it because they just want Peter in the mask and in the suit, and I totally understand that. But this, I've been really enjoying this, and it's kind of an interesting book for me as someone who isn't necessarily as knowledgeable about Spider-Man. I'm really enjoying this. I'm also interested to see what it's like when Peter comes back, because obviously he's going to have a lot of really big pieces to sort of put back together in his life. But that is, I guess, just always the story of Peter Parker. Things go good for a while, and then they go to crap. But Superior Spider-Man number 29, very good book this week. I love the art in this. It's not the guy who's done the art for most of Superior Spider-Man, but he has been doing it, I think, for all of this arc. I really, really like it, and the coloring helps a lot too. That does it for me, though. Hopefully I'll have a new SD card by next week, and you can see me on camera again doing these. But that's it for BCLDR. Back to you, Captain Logan.
Thanks again, enthusiasts, and I want to thank everybody, as always, for watching New Acquisitions. Once again, if you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Elite Comics in Overland Park, and also, if you ever want to send anything to be reviewed on the Comic Vault, you can always send those things to our P.O. Box, and that's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Once again, please, in the comments, vote whether or not you'd like to see new comic reviews as individual videos or one long video, and until next week, I'm Captain Logan, saying happy reading.